this is a very interesting topic, right? A lot of people has a lot of questions related to that, especially nowadays, outsourcing, getting things done by people in other country become such a normal question, right? It's no longer something weird, and people do that, and we actually needed that. And I have a client who are real estate developers, and some of their books are actually done in India. Actually, not in India. They think it's in India, actually done in Pakistan. And as a Pakistani are working on their books and record, obviously that posed a question, right? Secretively, in your mind, you're thinking, am I doing something wrong? What happened to the money I paid to them? Can I still deduct that amount out of my deduction? Is this legit? Do I supposed to fill up some forms? Do I supposed to tell government something? All of that. So today we're going to just run through this. I did prepare a PowerPoint, and the credit goes to our librarian, Catherine. And of course, we did reference to some of the law firms information. And there is a particular law firm, and I actually did look into their information. And at the end of the slides, I put their link in there for you. I don't know them, so I'm not trying to market anybody, but I do have to tell you that I learned some stuff from there, so you probably would too. Okay, so now let's just go to our slide and I use that to guide our conversation so we can be productive and I get you question answered. I know I'm going to answer your question. No responsibility disclaimer. That really doesn't sound like us, right? And we're so proud of what we're doing and we want to do the best for you, but still knowledge do updates and the information could be wrong. As smart as we are, we might be not as smart. So just take those information with grain of salt and really learn on your own, but use us as your library, right? Now, let's see. So there is so many reasons for people to hire remote workers. Of course, short of laborers, right? And who doesn't have that issue? Raise your hand. I didn't raise my hand. I'm just saying that if you don't have that issue, you raise your hand. I'll tell you that I don't need to even look. Everybody raising their hand. That's just what it is here in US in particular. Okay, so that's the reason why people go out of country to look for foreign workers. And when you get into that arena, and you know that it's kind of it is not as easy as it sounds, right? And we even have clients who goes, oh, I have a brother in China. Can I just hire him? And the answer is not even no or yes. It is really a lot more than just yes or no. It is needing to do analysis to see what your brother's status is. Is he US citizen? If not, and what kind of service is he doing for you? Is he doing a service here in US or he's doing service in China? And if he's doing service in China, what kind of service is he doing, right? All of that, and what kind of tax treaty between China and the US that would give any discount on the necessary foreigner withholding or what? So all of these things are coming in as a very necessity question. But one important thing we want everyone to realize is that the US companies can hire from any country without needing physical presence there, which means that you can hire people from Pakistan and you don't need to set up a company there. And you can hire people from Brazil. You don't need to set up a real office there. You just hire people. And it is different when hiring internationally. So it is going to pose a challenge when you don't have that physical presence. When you have the physical presence means when you set up a company there, you can hire an employee in the foreign country. Then you go by foreign country's rule, right? So there is a case out there and related to a company who has multiple offices in different South American country, Brazil being one. So the person they hired there and holds this permanent physical presence establishment there. So they do have a establishment there and they follow the local law, but that person got dissatisfied and sued employer in Brazil. And here in US company, it is so difficult to find someone even speak English there to be able to do the lawsuit. So, see how important and difficult that could be when you have establishment in the foreign country and you are subjecting to all the rules that locally. So common international hiring approaches, I downsize that into 3. Of course, there's many other ways to do that, right? And you could do visa, you could do work visa for people, so you hire them into the country. But hire people as a contractor, that's one of the big things out there is going on. And you see a lot of freelancers, the writers, and you see the accountant, and or you see the clerical job that got contracted out to India, right? So that's one way to hire subcontractors from remotely to foreign country, and work with global employment organization and professional employer organization. Those are the organizations really specialized in hiring people in a different country. What happened is they have establishment in that country. They understand the rule and the regulations. So when you want to hire someone, they basically give you one of their employee. So that is how you work in the foreign country as well. Of course, incorporate your company in that country. Just set up a company, set up a community CPA in Canada, then you can run a business there, right? Not like I never thought of, because I'm from Canada, so that was always something I was thinking about. But to make establishment in Canada, that would allow me to hire employees there. Otherwise, it is you in US as a US employer hiring subcontractors in Canada. So hiring international worker as a contractor overview. And here I want to really introduce some concepts. Okay, so here hiring international worker, and that worker, that person can be in a different country, can also be here. Okay, so now in general, when we hire someone as a contractor, if they are here, you really need to understand the employee and the contractor differences, right? You don't want to accidentally hiring them as a contractor, but they are employee. So you really want to understand the connection, the difference between contractor and employee here in US. So beside of that, if you hire someone, let's say if Community CPA hire someone in India to work on their books record, we don't, but all of our records and works are done here in US. That's kind of our thing. But say if we are doing that, then that person is in the foreign country. This is where that you would follow the rules over there. If that country has a subcontractor regulation, maybe you have to register them, or maybe they have to pay local taxes for what they're getting. So you need to know the local rules, okay, before you get into hiring people overseas. And there is one very important understanding. I know that will resolve a lot of your issues already by the time I talk like this, and understand the foreign independent contractors. You know how the US tax guide says that, all the US source income is paid US taxes, right? So let's say if I am someone living in US, living in China, say, and I work in China, but if this work I did, it is a US source income. For example, I live in China, I have invested in Microsoft. I got a whole bunch of dividend income, capital gain income coming out of my portfolio. That's a US source income, am I right? Because it's generated here in US. But let's say if I am in China and I work for a community CPA and I work the book and I go through, the work every day, I use my computer, and is that a US source income? Is that US source income? It is paid by the US company, but the income sources is not from US. It's from the labor that resides in that country, in the foreign country, it is a energy that you produce within the foreign country. Am I right? So that is not US source income. When I said that, let's just kind of read what I posted here. One of the conditions for requirement to file 1042, 1042S is that a foreign person should have US source income. This 1042 and the 1042S is a business employer who need to file that, okay? Because you need to file to withhold taxes for those people that you paid out money to. So this is an employer form. I want you to remember that. I know 30 minutes we won't have time to really go through those forms, but I just want you to know that these are employer form. The IRS provide guidelines how sources are determined for different type of income for foreign person. Foreign independent contractor earns income by providing personal services, according to IRS. The source of personal services income is determined by where services are performed. So I am in China. I'm not a US citizen, okay? In this example, I'm just a person in China. I'm Chinese and I'm Chinese national. And I work the book for Ying. And I provide personal service to Ying. That means my income source is not US income source. So do I need to be subject to all these withholding and stuff like that? Of course not, right? So even if the foreign person works for US company, the income he or she receives is not US source income as long as service is performed outside of US. As a result, the US company is not obligated to withhold and report taxes if the contractor does all his work outside of US, okay? And of course, in this particular talk, what I want you to understand is that the concept of source of income. If it is not a source of income from US, even though you got paid in US dollars, that doesn't mean anything. That's just a form of currency. Even though you got paid by Community CPA is a US company, that doesn't mean anything. It's just the service that you provided, and like something they bought on the market. They could buy it anywhere in the world, right? So that is an important understanding. I know that already answered a lot of your thinking. So let's look at a couple examples. A US company pays a foreign independent contractor living in another country. As a foreign contractor will perform all services in his country. He does not have a US source of income, and the US company does not have to report to IRS the payment made to the contractor. What does that mean? That doesn't mean that you cannot deduct it. It is, of course, part of your business expense, but you don't have to report on 1099 NEC. Okay, if the company hires Canadian contractor who lives in Canada, it does not have to withhold or report taxes to IRS because Canadian and the US has treaties. The treaties determines everything, right? The contractor only need to pay Canadian taxes on his income received from the US company. So actions, no need to withhold. Report payment made means no need to withhold with that 1042 form, and no need to send out 1099. Got it? All right, next example. A US company pays an independent contractor who is US citizen living in US. What a great example, okay? If you are US citizen, you're subject to worldwide income. So the company will issue 1099 for you. Okay, you're a US citizen. So same thing. So the company will send you a 1099 to you and you file US tax return. Got it? Okay. Now, a US company pays a foreign independent contractor who lives in US and has a visa that allow her to work in US. Okay. And in this particular example, one very important concept is that when people live in US, they could become, in taxes, it is not the same thing as a green card, right? I am permanent resident. I'm a resident of US. Sometimes people talk like that because they have a green card, they're residents of US. And in 5 years' time, if they apply, they would be able to vote, all right? So, but in tax world, The residence doesn't mean that you got a green card. It has nothing to do with your green card. It has everything to do with how long you stayed in the country and what visa you have. If you have H-1 visa, obviously you are residents. Okay, so that example doesn't apply to you. But let's say if you are a foreign independent contractor, you can work in US, and then in this case, and you will be withholding by whoever's sending you the tax form, whoever's sending you the money, okay? The visa status itself does not determine whether the foreign contractor should pay tax on the compensation. It is the place where the service is performed. If you, let's say the same person in China and worked for accounting book, we'll just use that as example. And say if you are a foreign independent contractor, but you are here in the US, you are performing services in US, so your source of income is from where? From USA, right? So in this case, you are still a foreign contractor. Yes, you're subject to withholding, and you need to fill a form. And you, as the contractor, you need to fill the form. I will give you that on the slide. I'll explain to you what that form means. But if this foreign national lives in US and performs services in US, the company must withhold tax rate of 30% or less. 30% is what need to be, or less is because every country has different treaty. Those treaties give discount. So you do need to know that which country you're working with, you can check on the treaty, right? There is an exception to the rule. If you are a foreign independent contractor, but you are residents here, then you are not subject to this treatment as a foreign independent contractor, right? And the second exemption is when the contractor stays in US for a long time, become a resident by meeting substantial presence test without a residence visa. If an international contractor is considered a US resident, his compensation will be withheld at the same rate as US residents, 30% for non-residents. So for US residents, same rate. That would be 0. Okay, unless you request to be withheld. So with that, I want to mention to you that if you come across an individual, is a foreigner without residence visa, but they live here long enough that to become a resident, they're treated as the same, like a person, like a normal person here in US. So you should issue 1099. Got it? All right. So let's go for the next slides. So this is where I want to talk to you about, how you are, if you are a foreign person and you work for US source of income, and we need to do special withholding for you, or based on what you fill in on the form W8 BN, we don't withhold for you whatever you fill up. What is W8 BN? It is the same as a W9. Are you familiar with W9? When you are subcontractor and the company would make you sending in W9, on that form, you fill out your LLC, your S Corp, whatever you are, or maybe just you and your social security number, and you sign it, you give to your, not your employer, you give to your contractor, and they are hiring you as a subcontractor. Remember, that is W9 for residents. W9 for people, even if you don't have a proper work permit and a visa, but you meet the substantial test to be a resident here in US, and you will do W9. But W8 BN is for foreign workers. So they need to fill that up and to determine what kind of withholding need to be done. So you will need to fill specific tax form to help establish the individual or entity who the work is not being done in US, and the work is not being done in US which just means that you are in the foreign country and you are working in the foreign country, but the source of income is from US, then you need to do W-8 Have you ever come across a situation where you are not in US and you are a foreigner to US, but you have stock investment somewhere or maybe partnership with somebody, then suddenly you got a form mailed to you and from your partnership or from someone called themselves withholding agency? Have you ever had that? That is a W-8BN. It is for you, for the foreign worker to properly determine. Once you submit this, the IRS and your agency will properly determine and how to withhold your taxes. And these forms are really important. So it's the same as a W-9. And you can always check on tax treaty by country to irs.gov. And this is the link that it gives you for tax treaty and the tables, tax rate tables. Of course, you can, relying on professional organizations to get you people who work from overseas, right? We briefly talked about global employment organizations and professional employer organizations. Those are organizations that has permanent establishment in the foreign country. So when, for example, if I really think of, I want to hire an accountant from Brazil, and then I can go to those organizations, they will give me a person, but that person is properly paid as employee or properly paid as a contractor in that country by their permanent establishment. So this is a places a lot of well-established company would go to, and they would go through these kind of agency to get their foreign worker to work. Okay. Now, of course, the ultimate correct way to hire foreign worker is to incorporate your company in the foreign country. It's almost like to establish a place where community CPA is in Brazil. So we establish a community CPA there, and with the proper local management, and then hiring local people to be employee and to run the company. That is a well-used method by many successful businesses who are going overseas. But of course, I don't think anyone would just go overseas without even knowing that language. So in your organization, when you work with the foreign workers, and I truly believe that you probably start with the language that you're familiar with. And it's never a good idea try to speak English and hiring foreign worker. It is just not going to serve you the same way as you are getting people here in the United States. All right, so incorporating a company, and what about hiring international worker? Final considerations, and we're 4 minutes to the end, and I want to make sure that you really do know that when you hire foreign contractor or worker in that country, you're subject to rules and regulations for that country. And don't ignore that, because when you get into lawsuit and the person you hired is going to sue you locally, and you would have to answer the lawsuit there, or you lose the lawsuit by not answering. Am I right? That could cost a lot. So that is a consideration, and it is very dear to my heart because I see clients having that issue. So consider local rules and regulations. And on the US side, and when you are working with a foreign worker, of course, the number one, you want to determine whether the source of income is US income or not. If it is not US income, why are you even in this webinar? It doesn't even make sense to me, okay? But if it is US income, then you must understand that person's status and that person's hiring credential, right? So status related to work visa and their hiring credential, how long they stayed in US, or maybe they never been in US. So those are determining you whether you want W-8 BEN form filled out, whether you have obligation to file 1042. So those are the things that employers should always think about. This law firm is the one that I was telling you guys, and you can go jiakimlaw.com. I don't know them, but when I go on to search for information like that, and I always look for the one that did a lot of research, the one that did a lot of publications and writing in the reputable publication area. Those are the people, those are the professionals maybe understand this area of issue deeper. So I want to make sure that you know that not everyone, not every CPA firm, not every law firm is really into this type of understanding, but you have community CPA. We always tell people that everything foreign is a norm for us. We deal with a lot of foreign investors and understand their story. Also work a lot with the US company. We understand how their position is. So hopefully by knowing both sides, and we can actually provide you with much more practical and meaningful advices. So I hope you enjoyed our webinar, and I will see you again on Saturday. Bye-bye.